What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 34 of the Block Exploring podcast. With me is Tommy, as always. And as always, once again, this episode is not financial advice, nor should it be construed as such. Um, well, let's kick it off with the state of the market. Everything is down, surprise. It's a big dip, a big pullback. Bitcoin's down 13% in 7 days, ETH 15%. Um, Binance 16%, Sol also 15%. Just overall, a big L for a lot of people. But, as we said in the last episode, it's a pullback, but we saw the pullback as needed because you can't keep pumping a market forever. And if you really look at the prices, Bitcoin was at this price like 2 weeks ago. So don't be scared. Just see it as part of the ride. Because what was it for Bitcoin? It was like 5th of November. It was at the exact same price point as right now, the 17th
and
of November.
and like months ago or like a year ago, like people were celebrating that we just hit 6K in Bitcoin
Yeah.
or stuff, or like we just hit 20K. I remember that was a big thing. And now we're like sad that we can't go further than 64K. Like it's an interesting, I don't know, mental paradox. Is that what you'd call it? But yeah, crazy.
Yeah. No, exactly. I think there's a lot of people who are being um, bearish for the short term, right? And I think that makes sense. And I think I hate to be the bearer of more bearish news, right?
Damn.
But we're going to be talking about Tether today and about the Discord Ethereum sign-in blowback. Now let's kick it off with Tether. And this is mainly a discussion for me about kind of the dangers of, covert centralization in a decentralized space, right? Tether is the largest stablecoin that is being used in crypto, USDT. Um, and if you look at the history of Tether, in 2017, they said, hey, we're fully backed, dollar to dollar. And then halfway 2018, someone found out, psych, that's not true. Then early 2019, they announced they weren't backed. Then halfway 2019, they announced that they were backed by themselves.
Mm.
And now it's 2021, right? And it feels like um, the central bank is in crypto because the printer is going burr.
Mm-hmm.
And in the last week, 4 billion US dollar or USDT Tether has been printed. And why is this scary? Well, the entire crypto market basically functions on Tether. The ongoing supply of Tether is greater than the ongoing supply of Bitcoin, of Ethereum in value. And these numbers, the blowback of this centralized
Mm-hmm.
kind of inflation that is happening with Tether has been pumping the markets somewhat as well, because a lot of Tether is available, and this has given people a lot of arguments why cryptocurrencies can't coexist with legal tender,
Mm-hmm.
because um, a cryptocurrency like Tether can easily be inflated beyond its supply of underlying assets because it's just buttons right on the computer. It's the same as the dollar. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's something everyone should be on the lookout for.
And it's like, I mean, what's a glaring issue is that this is emblematic of like things that crypto and blockchain was supposed to bring us away from, right? And like
Yeah.
principles that like people like who really started early in this blockchain space, the cypherpunks, all these principles that they embedded at least in Bitcoin blockchain network, or like in general, like these principles that pervade blockchain just seem counter to what Tether is enacting now. And it's why is such an issue is because Tether is, like what you said, so prominent in the
Hmm.
cryptocurrency space, right? And it just begs the question, how have they actually cemented themselves as this core stablecoin that everyone's using, when there are actually arguably a lot of better alternatives that are decentralized, that are
Yeah,
community owned, or that are so many things that take us away from this need to depend on a centralized institution that's doing a lot of sus activities, clearly.
absolutely. And there's a bunch of really good alternatives, I think. We were talking about Terra, the Terra
Hmm.
protocol. It's a stablecoin
Yeah.
UST, not to be confused with USDT. And that's a fully, I think it's an algorithmic stablecoin which backs itself with its native token called Luna. And there's USDC, which is another stablecoin. There's also
Die.
DAI, yeah,
Yeah.
and there's also euro variants for these most of the time,
Yeah.
which is handy if you're thinking in euros, if you're trading with euros, to get that one-to-one kind of transaction going and see. It's better for your oversight if you're trading in euros to use a euro-backed stablecoin or at least a euro-based stablecoin. But I think there's a lot to be said about Tether, and then I'll wrap up the topic of Tether and we move on to Discord. And I think a lot of legal experts, and I hate to make it too legal in a short time, have made claims on antitrust law,
Mhm.
and saying that you really have to watch out with collusion, monopoly power, um, and things like well, what do you call it? There's this kind of power game, right,
Right.
within the blockchain, and you have to really manage that and mitigate that you don't just get like a fully centralized service that starts dictating how the crypto space moves price wise.
Mhm.
And
Right.
then on top of that, I think you have to watch out, like well, over 200 gigabytes of transactional data were taken from 10 different sources, which was like an article that studied Tether, right? And um, regulators have to cooperate with blockchain communities to enforce these legal rules. So there are a lot of small variables that need to
Mhm.
be handled, and it's really hard for regulators to kind of target this kind of negative these negative aspects. So, like the centralized aspects of the crypto space are harder to regulate because of the nature of the crypto space, right?
Right.
And the entire purpose is that the space is decentralized, and you have to give regulators, well, at least you have to give them a point with targeting stable coins in this way, because the entire tendency has been, hey, we have to manage the stable coins, watch out with stable coins,
Hmm.
because there's no underlying assets, it's just numbers at this point. So yeah, I think for our people, it's important to take that into account. Make sure that you swap your tokens into more trustworthy stable coins.
Hmm. No, exactly. And it's just well, do your own research. Because like a lot of people probably are using USDT and they just
Yeah,
don't know what's going on, in the background, which
yeah,
is like we've just expressed, can be quite a worrying thing.
exactly. I think that also, with that being said, it shows the centralized dangers of the crypto space, and I think you can really kind of vote with your wallet in this case.
Right.
If you think it's an issue, I feel like it's an issue. Tether as a in its core. Um,
But that's the thing. Like, it just depends on how the incentives are aligned, right? Like, if
mhm,
there's a centralized institution, oftentimes their incentives are aligned to make that centralized institution benefit the most in every
yeah,
instance. But usually, what blockchain enables is widespread, decentralized, distributed ownership of public goods, such as, for
yeah,
example, ENS is a great example of this, right? And what you can do in the space is really align incentives in a way where people don't have to compete with each other
mhm,
to get a leg up, or for everyone, in this space you can align incentives and incentivize cooperation and good governance, and
yeah,
with that, then that is whether this project or DAO or whatever this construction might be called, whether they want to have that point of connection with the nation state is
Hmm.
one thing, but the fact that there is tooling to facilitate good distributed decentralized governance is a very powerful thing, that is a reason why people should move away from centralized mechanisms or institutions, and not take the L ultimately
Yeah,
in potential L.
exactly. And on the topic of taking an L, uh, Discord, right?
Yeah.
Discord is facing kind of a blowback compared to their Ethereum sign-in kind of proposal,
Hmm.
and a lot of it has to do, I'm assuming, with the fact that you have to sign in fully,
Right.
and that your personal data will be very much linked to your account. Tommy, you were very vocal about this before
I know.
we recorded.
I know. So like,
Let us know.
I mean, Discord CEO basically suggested that like there may come Ethereum wallet integration, so like a sign in with Ethereum type thing, which would be great because a large majority of users on Discord are people who are in DAOs, crypto, blockchain related people, but obviously their core user base is this are hardcore gamers, right? But so you would imagine that like, yeah, sign in with Ethereum and Discord is a perfect marriage, right? And they just got incredible blowback from their core users, which are these gamers, right? And which is interesting because there's this in the play to earn space, and blockchain is enabling a lot of amazing things with what you can do in gaming. So it just feels that the gaming space and blockchain technology is colliding, and creating beautiful things out of that collision. But there's just a huge number of people in the gaming community, and I think a lot of other communities who have a bad taste in their mouth regarding crypto, blockchain, and
Yeah,
NFTs. And that's highly unfortunate, and I feel, because I mean, for the other half of these users who are DAOs, who are NFT people, who are crypto blockchain natives, I think they would gladly really benefit from having Ethereum integration, and
no,
into
absolutely.
Discord. And the thing is, like, if you don't like it, don't use it. You don't have to
Hmm.
use it. You can sign in with your Gmail, no problemo. Like, why can't you
That's
just
a
sign in
great
with your
point.
like, let the Ethereum people have their Ethereum sign in. Like, it doesn't affect you, but
Exactly.
some people just be having a big kerfuffle over it. So they got some blowback, and I think the CEO had to walk it back. But it take getting away from this, like, Bitcoin crypto has a bad image problem. It needs some rehab within a few
Mhm.
communities. That's a thing that just has to continue over time, right? Because it's not easy to get
Yeah,
away from the negative stigmas that the space has accumulated for some reason. I mean,
absolutely.
not for, I mean, some obvious reasons, but yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah,
But it gets us thinking about sign in with Ethereum, and this talk about how Ethereum is more than just your decentralized bank, your
yeah,
decentralized bank, your personal wallet, but rather it's your identity on the blockchain, into the metaverse, your passport, so to say. And that just happens to have economic functionality, utility. So
yeah,
that's
which is essential.
an
And
interesting
I
concept to think about, especially because
yeah,
in the way we interact with Web3 applications now, like, it really does feel like that is our, like, passport.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more with what you said. Like, let make this diversification, right? Let
Hmm.
people who want to sign in with their Gmail sign in with their Gmail. Let people who want to sign in with their ETH address sign in with their ETH address. And I think that this is kind of this Web 2.5 area where we're getting into, right? Like
Hmm.
decentralized services allowing for operability with Web 3.0 functionality.
All right.
And I think for our listeners, to kind of wrap up this episode, I'd like to give that sentiment of voting with your crypto. Uh, I would like to send them along that message. So if you see a service that is centralizing your decentralized kind of Web 3.0 capabilities, asking you for sign in and all that other stuff, combining it to email accounts, maybe opt out of using that. And if you see services the way Discord wanted to integrate it, where you can use it fully according to its purpose, so you sign in with your wallet address via the Ethereum sign-in features, maybe opt in for that. If you see
Yeah.
US Tether be a centralized service, maybe opt out of using Tether and opt into something like US Terra or
Yeah.
USDC.
I mean, no financial advice, but
Of course,
there are
but
options.
maybe yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think these kind of shortcuts, right? It's often like it's like you see happen with Solana. Transfer fees are very cheap because there's very few servers actually validating the transactions. There's like 20
Mhm.
servers validating transactions. It's kind of a shortcut. It's kind of decentralized centralization. It's
Right.
very much on the brink of it. I think you have to still,
I
vote
feel
with your wallet.
Solana's fairly centralized, to be honest,
Yeah,
in my
it is
opinion,
exactly.
obviously.
That's what I'm saying. So like,
Yeah.
if you have if you're in it for the tech, which that maybe think about, or if you're in it more long term, maybe think about these centralized features.
Hmm.
Then again, there is no hate on someone who bought Solana at $20 and is selling it now at $200.
No, yeah.
If as an investment is an investment, and I don't think you should put any technical ethics in that perspective. Maybe you want to, but I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, I mean, it's about like identifying your lane and like what mindset is most most conducive to that lane. And of course you can be in multiple lanes, right? But like obviously if you're
Yeah.
solely thinking of being a trader of cryptocurrencies, you're not necessarily, I mean, like I mean, obviously all these macro discussions, narratives and everything plays into it,
Mhm.
but it's yeah, you're not, if you see that USDT is going to do really well, in your opinion, or I mean, that's not a good example, but if you think
Mhm.
something is going to do very well and it's fairly centralized, you're not going to be like, nah, I'm going to miss out
Exactly.
on these gains because I care about decentralization. I mean,
Yeah.
you might do because you actually are in both lanes and you care about like what tech actually should win out in the end and you care about these
Yeah.
principles. But, it's about figuring out what works for you in this space because there's so many things you can do. Man, it's a
Yeah.
whole episode on its own.
It's a whole episode in its own. So, with that said, tune in for the next episode where we may or may not go into this, or at least one of the future episodes. Check out our Discord and follow us on Twitter. With that said, see you in the next episode. Peace.
Take it easy.